Between aging and busy lifestyles, many women struggle with maintaining their physical and mental wellness. At Aquavita Concierge Healthcare Services for Women, we can help you revitalize your health and reclaim your life. We start from within by balancing your hormones, allowing your body to achieve and maintain desired weight goals. We also specialize in peptide therapies, regenerative medicine, sexual health, and aesthetics in our state-of-the-art facilities. Feel better, look better, live better at Aquavita. Visit aquavitality.com and begin your journey today.
No brakes, no brakes, no fear, no fear. The official British Speedway podcast.
Coming up in this week's episode, reaction from Monmore as Wolves derail the Aces Knockout Cup charge before it's really begun.
Nice to get that monkey off my back and, get that race win and, I don't have to worry about that now. I just need to get more of them.
The Leicester Lions are underway in life at Premiership level. It was a close encounter against the Ipswich Witches at Vauxhall. We'll hear from Max Frick.
I was looking, I seen Sedgy come around the first corner and I looked and I seen Emil was behind. I thought, I got my work cut out for me now.
And our special guest in part 2 is the Redcar Bears team manager, Gavin Parr.
And you just spend your life on Speedway updates, watching Speedway updates to see how they're doing. And you just dread the dreaded F or FX next to a rider's name. And then it gets even worse if it's an FX and it's got a dash after it.
Redcar face Birmingham at the weekend, and we'll hear from Gavin Parr's opposite number, Laurence Rogers.
We've been written off by a lot of the so-called experts, which is great. Underestimate us, please. We've got a side that, Nick's going to be up there in the 10-point thing, but we've got riders who can improve their averages.
And we've got interviews with Danny King and Emil Sayfutdinov, and we'll hear from Chris Harris and Ty Proctor. All on the way on No Brakes, No Fear.
No brakes, no fear. The official British Speedway podcast.
Welcome along. I'm Ian Brannan. Great to have you with us once again on the official podcast of British Speedway. If this is your first time that you've joined us, then please make sure you hit like or subscribe or follow or whatever the instruction is on your favourite app of choice so you don't miss any future episodes, as they'll be coming at you every week as we go through the British Speedway season. We've had a few more fixtures over this past week, and if the weather forecasters are to be believed, then some great weather is just around the corner, but that's for next week. Right now to the present, and we're going to start at Monmore Green because Wolverhampton ran up a 26-point lead over Bellevue in the space of just 11 races to take control of their Premiership Knockout Cup tie. The earlier meeting in the day was supposed to be a double header between Bellevue and Wolves. Manchester seeing quite a bit of rain around lunchtime, so that one was postponed. Wolves staged that first leg at Monmore Green, although the weather there did play its part later on in the meeting, 4 races having to be cancelled, but by then the damage was done. The action which was possible saw Wolves deliver a superb performance. Steve Worrell, Sam Masters and Ryan Douglas, plus a guest, Chris Harris, all unbeaten by an opponent as they secured 6 5-1s and won every heat. 46-20 the final score. So then, let's hear from one of those riders who certainly stormed to victory in his first race. Reserve Zach Cook has been speaking with Ryan Guest.
Well, Zach Cook, I know it's very early doors in your Wolverhampton career and in your Premiership career, but nevertheless some really encouraging early signs from yourself, fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. Just taking each race as it comes and learn more and more each race and taking the positives and making good steps so far.
Against Bellevue, how did it feel to go out there in Heat 2 and get your first race win in Wolves colours? Yeah,
good. It was nice to get that monkey off my back and get that race win and I don't have to worry about that now. I just need to get more of them. Yeah, only your third meeting at Monmore Green as well, on the back of Sam Masters' testimonial and the league victory over Kings Lynn the previous week as well. But Monmore Green, it can be a tricky track to get dialed into and get used to. But like you say, already picking up some of the craft. Yeah, I'm lucky here with the team we've got. There's a lot of experience the whole way through the team, and I can learn a lot. And if you just ask questions, someone's always there to help you out. And just more laps on the track is the best thing I can be doing. And I'm slowly finding my feet, and hopefully there's more things to come. Yeah, how much is the Aussie factor playing a part at Wolverhampton as well? Obviously, you got Sam Masters, Ryan Douglas, Rory Schlein as well. So I'm guessing having those compatriots that must help as well. Yeah, definitely, it's good. All the Aussie boys get on well together, and to have so many in one team, it's nice. And looking at that first leg victory over Bellevue in the Knockout Cup as well, a 26-point advantage, that's probably more than the team could have imagined going into the opening race. Yeah, definitely. I don't think anyone was really expecting that, but, you know, as I said before, there's a lot of experience in the team, and, everyone's very strong around here, and there's no reason why we can't do that to, a lot of the teams. Looking ahead to Thursday, it's a first away trip in the Premiership to you for Kings Lynn as well. It's a place you actually rode in the final meeting at 2022, with the Championship being held on neutral ground, the Championship Grand Final when you rode for Poole. So nice to have some experience of an away track in your first away league meeting. Yeah, exactly. You know, obviously with the rain that last year, we ended up there, and it's always nice to know what you're gunning for, I guess, and not going into the meeting blind. But looking forward to it, and hopefully we can get that away win.
So the result stands despite being rained off with 4 heats left. It's a 26-point lead that Wolves have over Bellevue. The restaging of that will take place on one of the next bank holidays, the 8th of May at 12 noon at the National Speedway Stadium, for the restaging of what would have been the first leg, but now the second leg, the one that was rained off on Bank Holiday Monday this time. Looking back to last Thursday, we had action at Foxhall Raceway as Jason Doyle raced to a paid maximum as Ipswich overcame a stubborn Leicester challenge to win 48-42 in the first leg of their Knockout Cup tie. It was the first time we've seen the Leicester Lions in action in this new era of Premiership Speedway. Jason Doyle twice combining with Emil Sayfutdinov for 5-1s in heats 13 and 15 after the Lions had gone into the closing stages with a 2-point advantage. Sayfutdinov was unbeaten in 4 of his 5 rides on his home debut, but was unable to pass the team riding duo of Max Frick and Justin Sedgman, who scored a 5-1 for Leicester in heat 11. Doyle with 14+1, Sayfutdinov with 12+1, Danny King scoring 10, all in double figures for the hosts, while Max Frick top scored for a solid Lions side on 9+1. Now we've got quite a few different interviews to bring you off the back of this particular meeting. We'll hear from Emil Sayfutdinov and Danny King very soon, but let's first hear from the away side, and that man we just mentioned there, Max Frick, who teamed up with Justin Sedgman to hold off Emil Sayfutdinov for 4 laps. Here he is speaking with Dave Rowe.
Max, what do you make of it? Obviously first meeting, good battling effort, go down by 6, it leaves the tie still really up for grabs in the second leg.
Yeah, exactly. It's a new team. We're all getting used to each other, as well as, it's our first meeting of the year. Yeah. So I think all in all, a really successful night. In the end, the last couple of heats, they were a little bit too strong for us, but we kept it really close. It was a really close, interesting meeting the whole way through. And I think everyone's, pretty happy with how the first night went, especially away from home.
It's going to be tough for anyone coming here with the top 2, particularly they've got. But what a race that was with you and Sedgy team riding against Emil. Could you hear him?
I was looking. I seen Sedgy come around the first corner, and I looked. And I seen Emil was behind. I thought, I got my work cut out for me now. We need to make the most of this situation of being on a 5-1, and I was trying my best to, defend. So Sedgy rode awesome as well, especially that heat. I was just, head on a swivel, trying to see where Emil was and trying to block him out.
I thought you got the jump in 13, and Doyle seems on this track, he seems to make moves that no one else can. Wherever he starts in the first bend, he comes through, and you got really squeezed out. Yeah, I thought I made that start as well, and then I just got squeezed out there and kind of sandwiched between the two, and I come off second best. But my speed was good all night. Yeah. Same thing for me. I haven't done a whole lot of racing yet this year, so just trying to work my way into it slowly and steadily. So far so good, feeling okay. Speed's there, starts are a little bit off, but I've got plenty to work on over the next kind of few weeks. As the weather warms up, we can get a bit more bike time.
Yeah, and the weather is going to warm up as well, so that's good news, certainly as far as the weathermen are saying. Max Frick there, of course, will be getting ready for Grand Prix action as well at the end of this month, and no doubt we'll look ahead to the prospects there as we get nearer to that time. Danny King is the Ipswich captain then, and he's been reflecting on that win over the Leicester Lions, and it was a fairly narrow win, of course, with Mike Boswell from Gen X Radio in Suffolk.
Captain's job looked pretty easy this evening, but overall, scoreline went either way. How did you kind of find your night?
Yeah, personally, my night was pretty good. Couple of little mistakes, but scored pretty well. So, overall pleased. Obviously pleased to get the win as well. It was a hard-fought battle. We had to fight hard for it. Leicester are a solid outfit and they've got strength in depth, and we see that tonight. But obviously we have a powerhouse at the top, and they came strong at the end, which is what we rely on. So, I'd like to took more points to Leicester for the return leg, but it's still a track I feel we could ride well, and a track we can win at. So fingers crossed we can get through to the next round.
Great, and as an outside observer, just watching you in the pits tonight, it seems as if you were giving a lot of help to the younger riders. What kind of work is there for them?
Yeah, we haven't really had a warm-up meeting at all. We're straight into the business. So for me, I was just trying to get them settled in and make sure they were happy, because obviously that's the main thing. If they're not sure, they're not happy with their setup, they're not going to perform on track. So it was a bit of a learning curve for them, but I think they all progressed through the meeting and they're all pleased. So fingers crossed they got a set up now for next week.
Ipswich Witches captain Danny King and Danny's other team, Redcar Bears, are in the spotlight in the second part of this podcast, because we're going to be speaking to the Redcar team boss Gavin Parr as they get into Cab Direct Championship BSN Series action this weekend, and we'll have a chat about Danny King as well, because of course he's a big signing for Redcar into 2023. Back to Vauxhall then, and Emil Sayfutdinov finally had his home debut, and it was certainly a decent one as well. 12 plus 1 bonus on his first serious trip to Vauxhall in the current era, and he's also been having a chat with Mike Boswell about his first appearance there in Suffolk.
Emil, fantastic home debut for you. How did you think about it? What did you like about the track and everything else around it?
Yeah, it's I'm really happy because it's first meeting in home track. It was stressed, but because its track is different. It's a little bit narrow and a little bit smaller than its normal track, and try to be focused about the setups, what we can make, and so I'm really happy now.
And looking across the board, some superb kind of teaming up with Doyley. How are you finding kind of riding with Doyley and the rest of the team?
I just like all team, we try to keep, it's like good atmosphere, support everyone, it's just, so for that moment, I'm really happy, and we just try to keep, it's going, and looking forward.
Okay, and final question. I was having a really good chat with Max Frick, and he was saying, one of the conversation pieces is that English Speedway seems to be a bit more relaxed than Polish Speedway. What's your take after the first kind of match?
I think it's different Speedway, it's in England, because between Poland and England, it's completely different. I can say like relax or not, just I try to be like relaxed in Poland also, but it's different atmosphere there and different atmosphere here, it's even in a meeting, it's you have different hits, different when this tape is going on, so it's like everything is different, so can't compare Poland and English, something say worse. I think there is okay and here is okay, so that's why I sent here to get some more experience, to be a little bit better riders maybe like this, just to feel different for my career and my history.
So there's Mike Boswell talking with new Ipswich Witches signing Emil Sayfutdinov, who announced himself in style to the fans with a performance scoring 12 plus 1 bonus points on his first trip to Vauxhall Raceway. Kings Lynn management were pulling no punches after a heavy 58-32 defeat at Sheffield in the first leg of the Premiership Knockout Cup. The Stars have suffered a tough first week with losses at Wolves in the league and then at Ollerton on the Thursday. This occasion it was skipper Josh Pickering scoring 11 and Nikolai Clint on 8 who scored the bulk of their points. The Tigers turned in a power pack display led by Jack Holder scoring 12 plus 1 bonus, Tobias Musilak with 11 plus 3 and Carl Howarth on 10 to make themselves strong favourites for the second leg later this month. Well, we can hear from the two team managers and the contrasting emotions. Simon Stead and Alex Brady speaking on BSN.
It hasn't been our start to the season, unfortunately, so far. Really disappointing. A couple of riders have picked their game up tonight. Nikolai and Josh that perhaps had tougher nights on Monday, but and Jason's done his job down at reserve and Fred too. But yeah, we're a couple of passengers, unfortunately, and disappointing.
I hate to touch on it, but one of the common denominators there being Christoph Kasperzak, number 5, no points. Not what you want to see.
No, Christoph is a gamble from the start. He's obviously, as everybody knows, a bit of an enigma. But yeah, tonight it really hasn't been his night, and it hasn't been King's Lynn's night. So perhaps back to the drawing board.
Back to the drawing board. Not necessarily the case for Sheffield, though.
I get the easier interview. Simon, another top performance from the boys from top to bottom, really.
Yeah, that's right. I think what you said is right. From top to bottom, we look like a really solid outfit. The heat leaders doing their job, 2 and 4 doing their job, and the reserves are doing their bit as well. Great to see Dan Gilks really finding his feet, looking competitive at this level after such a horrendous injury last year. So that's great to see as well, and he deserved his 4th ride then as well. I know he binned it, but he's not going to get any better sat in the pits.
No, that's right, and I think we all want riders of that type to do so well, and it is good to see him doing well. But with Louis Kerr at reserve, it's strength in depth, isn't it?
Yeah, and look, I think that's the key when you're trying to build a speedway team, but it's not always that easy. We play to numbers, and sometimes things just fall into place, and I'm really happy with the 7 that I've got, and it's been a really solid start.
As Simon Stead, team manager of the Sheffield Tigers. Before that, we heard Alex Brady, the team boss of the King's Lynn Stars. At the half-time point then, it's a big lead for Sheffield, 58-32, as they go into the second leg back at the Adrian Flux Arena, which will be on the 24th of April, 7:30 the start time there for that one in Norfolk. There was another incident that certainly caught the imagination of a few fans and also a few national newspapers, a tussle at the end of Heat 14, which in itself was a fantastic heat. But people are talking about the event that happened at the end of that, which was a tussle between Michael Palmtoft and Louis Kerr right at the pit gates. Of course, this has been reported back to the relevant authorities, and the Speedway Control Bureau have investigated both that and also another tussle which involved the riders Ben Basso and Craig Cook at the Glasgow v Edinburgh fixture on April the 9th. Now, both of them have been investigated simultaneously, both for a breach of the same rule, which is Speedway Regulation 018.2G, which is surrounding any act of violent, threatening or abusive nature to an official rider or any other person. The SCB have viewed the footage and have already come to a conclusion. They've issued Louis Kerr and Ben Basso with a cash penalty. Both riders have been warned of their future actions, and both of them have 28 days to pay their cash penalties as of the 11th of April. So every action has a reaction, as they say, but there are rules, and those have been followed through, and we all move on. So that's what happened there last Thursday. Well, that brings us up to date with the happenings over the last week in the Premiership. Let's have a look ahead to what's coming up this week, and we've got a big day on Thursday, April the 13th, with 6 of the Premiership sides in action. It's Ipswich versus Bellevue at Foxhall. We've got the King's Lynn Stars hosting the Wolverhampton Wolves. Of course, Wolverhampton having a decent lead from the first leg of that league tie. Don't forget, we've got the bonus point in play to play for as well there, but that takes place on Thursday evening, as does the Leicester Lions versus the Peterborough Panthers. So that's Thursday's action. And then looking ahead to Monday, at the East of England Arena, we've got the Peterborough Panthers up against the Bellevue Aces, and that's in the Premiership. We've got the Premiership Knockout Cup quarter-final second leg between the Leicester Lions and the Ipswich Witches, which is part 2 of that meeting we were just talking about. And that's your Premiership action over the next week. If you can get down to any of those matches, then I'm sure you'll have a great time, and we'll talk about what happened in those and give you some reaction in next week's episode of No Breaks, No Fear. So coming up next, we turn our attention to the Redcar Bears, and we're going to have a chat with our special guest this week, Gavin Parr, who's the team manager of Redcar and an all-round Speedway fan as well. He loves it as much as everybody else, and we're going to have a right good chat about Speedway in general and what it's like being a team manager, putting those teams together, and some of the things that you have to factor in, perhaps, that you don't really think about if you're a fan, but when you're the team manager, you worry about these little things. We'll talk about that in the next part of No Breaks, No Fear with Gavin Parr.
No Breaks, No Fear, the official British Speedway podcast.
Welcome back. In this part, we turn the attention onto the Cab Direct Championship and in particular onto the Redcar Bears, who are in action later this week. They're taking on the Birmingham Brummies in the BSN Series clash at the Echo Arena on Saturday night, and that'll also be a fixture that's live on BSN as well. Now, the man in charge of the Redcar Bears this year is Gavin Parr, and what a side they've got. It features names such as Eric Riss, Danny King, Charles Wright, Daniel Hume, Connor Bailey, Jason Edwards and Jake Mulford. When you look at the youth and experience through that side, you can see why they are one of the fancied teams for some glory in 2023. Last year, Gavin made the step up as a temporary team manager, and now that has been made full-time as he takes the side into the Cab Direct Championship, and he joins us now. Gavin, first of all, what's life like then as the team manager? You sort of start out in a way as a fan of the club, and now you're the man who's filling the programme in for real in the pits.
Hi, Ian. Yeah, it's been a huge learning curve, to be fair. Obviously from starting out as a rider, well, as a fan for many, many years, then becoming a rider in my later years, going on to manage the Cubs. And then I took over last season for a little bit while Jade had a overdue rest and went back to New Zealand to see his family for 4 weeks. So I got to know, the ins and outs of things. And then I didn't really think I was keeping the job until the end of the season, working alongside Jade. And to be fair, I thought this season we're just going to do it as a duo. But he dropped the bombshell I think it was on the way to Pool or wherever we were heading, and he went, "Oh, by the way, I was with Jamie, Jade, and myself." And he said, "By the way, I'm stepping down." And I was like, I really fancied the job as sort of, as a duo or whatever. And he went, "We found a replacement." I was like, "Oh," and in the back of your mind when you're like absolutely gutted, I was like, "Oh, that's a bit of a shame." I really enjoyed my role and whatever. And he went, "He's in the car with you." And I was like, all right, okay then. So yeah, but then I had a winter of learning. I've got to keep my tongue sort of firmly thinking, but yeah, learning riders come, riders go, riders have signed, riders then aren't signed, and yeah, it's opened my eyes massively to sort of the wonderful world of Speedway as it was.
Yeah, and the whole team building thing's a nightmare, isn't it, for a team manager? A bit like going to a Marrakesh bazaar in that you're haggling away over price and contract details and stuff like that, and before you know it, that offer is taken away from you and you have to start again and move on to something else. Tell us what it's like putting these teams together and the sort of stressful times, aren't they, in the close season?
It's a bit, yeah, I'm sure other team managers or listeners will go through exactly the same thing. It's a bit the easiest way of it's a bit of a hokey cokey. You're in, you're out, you're in again. You've got your 7. I've got we have a little bit of a joke. I've got a little green book, which we started, the 3 of us putting the team together. And I'm not exaggerating, but there must be about 15 different teams in that green book of different riders, because we wanted to tell that we wanted to keep literally 6 of the 7 riders from last season. And unfortunately, that just didn't happen for one reason or another. We're still very much friends with all of them. But then we sort of we got somebody in, and then they got a better offer, and out they went, and then we got somebody else in, and out they went. And yeah, but to be fair, looking at it, the riders that did leave, I'm massively happy with the 7 that I've got, or the 7 that we've got. And I'm hoping, that barring injuries or disasters, that we have a really good season.
I think one of the signings of the season in the championship is Danny King. Getting Danny King in. Obviously, he was let go by Poole, their captain for the last couple of years, led them to back-to-back league and cup doubles, and then he's allowed to leave, and now you've got him at Redcar. And I think that this is going to be massive because obviously Charles Wright's the captain, but you've got another personality there in the pits who's another captain who's going to lead on the track but also off the track spurring the boys on in the pits and all that kind of side too.
Danny's massive to the club, honestly. Like, really, within the first sort of 3 or 4 weeks of signing him, just his ideas, his mentality. He's been there, done that, but he's not on the way down. If you listen to, actually, I think it was on your podcast, you had Danny on, and if you listen to him, he's still as hungry as ever, and it just happened at Scunthorpe on Friday there when we got beat. He finished last in his last race in Heat 13. He was lying second, and literally his tyre disintegrated. He had no middle to the left of his tyre. In the last 2 laps, he started going backwards, and he came in and he was going mad. And this is what I've said to him. I've spoken to him today. Says, Danny, I would much rather you be like a grumpy, a horrible, grumpy man than coming in laughing and joking. It shows you care, and it shows, you mean what you're doing and what you preach. Literally, it's just the whole club. He brings everything that, any speedway rider should look at the likes of Danny King, and that's what you want to, that's what you want to be. Because, as I say, like in the pits, we spoke about pit positions of where we put different riders. We speak at length nearly every other day, or at least twice a week. And we just hope and pray that he brings the bit of luck, because you do need a bit of luck, but the luck and also the professionalism he's had at Poole, that he brings it along, and we have sort of hopefully similar success.
Another rider that you managed to hold on to from last year was Eric Riss, and I know he was not necessarily in your plans to begin with, but you managed to find a way to keep Eric at Redcar for this season. A top-class rider, of course, but he's not quite been feeling himself lately. He's missed a couple of meetings, hasn't he? I know that he's been on social media saying he's been over in Germany trying to get himself sorted out. What's the latest with Eric, and what's the situation there?
Yeah, Eric he was a big miss at Scunthorpe. That was a bit of a nightmare. Charles Wright had also sort of declared himself unfit on Friday with COVID. Charles was really struggling. And then I think I got a message about 11 o'clock at night from Eric saying that he's got what he describes as brain fog. He just can't concentrate. He rode at Ipswich and felt really ill. So sort of Friday night at about 11:30, all of a sudden, I was sort of two riders down. I'd managed to get Justin Sedgman as a guest for Charles, because obviously Charles's average with his shoulder problems is lower than it really should be, to be fair. And then I woke up 6 o'clock on Saturday morning to a message from Charles saying, Gav, can you please give us a ring? And Charles said he wanted to declare himself fit. Oh, he said he was ill. He's got COVID, but he reckons he could do a job for the team better than getting a guest in, and also one for Eric. So that's how much Redcar means to Charles. We tried anyway. We ended up with Justin Sedgman, just had to swap to Eric. But I've spoken to Eric today. I've had a message from Eric today, and he's had an MRI and a CT scan, and they've shown nothing untowards with his head. They have found something somewhere else in his body, which he has to have tests again for on Friday. But he's just basically got some blood tests taken today. He should get the results for them tomorrow. But at the moment, it looks unlikely whether Eric will be with us on Saturday, which is a bit of a shame. But as I've said to Eric, look, Speedway is the second. Your health and your well-being has got to be the most important thing. And riding, as your podcast says, no brakes, no fear, with sort of brain fog, just would not be good at all. So let's keep our fingers crossed for Eric that he makes a speedy and full recovery. But at the moment, yeah, we're basically in the lap of the gods, as it was, and the doctors across in Germany.
Well, all the best to Eric, and hopefully see him back in action very soon indeed. And obviously this has a knock-on effect for Ipswich as well, and that's the case really across Speedway, isn't it? And you as a team manager, are you pacing up and down while the Premiership sides are in action, or indeed the National League sides are in action, and checking the updates through between your fingers, or what? Because it must be nervous times, just making sure that your prized assets come back in one piece from wherever else they're racing.
It is, Ian. You know the good old days. Obviously, I wasn't a team manager back then. Beg your pardon, but you sort of you raced on a Friday night, and then you looked at your fixtures, and you didn't have a match until the next week or until the Wednesday, so you could just relax. You could just sort of not really think about the team or whatever. Now, obviously, they're riding on Mondays and Thursdays. I've got Jake and Connor, who are going to be riding in the under-24 league in Poland. And you just spend your life on Speedway updates, watching Speedway updates to see how they're doing. And you just dread the dreaded F or FX next to a rider's name. And then it gets even worse if it's an FX and it's got a dash after it. It just... people who think a team manager and the promoters, it's not just myself, just turn up on a night time and do their job and then go away, and without saying too much, but, I've stopped reading Speedway forums and things because people obviously always know best. You get your keyboard warriors, there was one I'm not going to mention, but why didn't Charles have the tax sub ride on Friday at Scunthorpe? Gav made a big error. Actually, Charles, I was very lucky to get him to do 5 rides. He only was going to do 4, and I managed to get do 5. To do 6 was impossible. But they're quick to jump on, aren't they? They're quick to jump in there when they haven't really got an idea as to what's going on. But I guess that's part and parcel of any sport, isn't it? There's they pay their money, they've got their views, so we've just got to take it. But easiest way is just not to look at social media anymore, to be fair.
It's definitely a downside sometimes, and I think people are very quick to jump in there. People are always quicker to complain in anything in life. People are always quicker to kick off than they are to say, "Oh, that was good, well done." But I think sometimes people come up with all sorts of theories and stuff like that, conspiracy theories almost sometimes, about how some things happened or why something hasn't happened or why didn't this happen, why didn't that happen, this is ridiculous. People get very, very offended very, very quickly. But I think usually if something hasn't happened or has happened, there's usually a reasonable explanation as to why that situation has come about and whatever action has been taken.
That's right, Ian. It's again sort of Scunthorpe on Friday. Danny had been struggling for a bit of power, but he'd had 3 second places or whatever. I put him in as a tack sub. He absolutely bust his guts, for the team. And then in heat 13, he had, as I say, I think he was second at the time, and his back tyre disintegrated. And he wondered why he went from second and they just passed him going down the straight. Well, if you've got no back tyre, you've got no grip, you've got no traction. And then somebody on one of the forums is slagging him off. Danny King's he's dropped about 3 points or so far this season. Started like a train, but somebody straight away having a go. I reserve judgment on Danny King and that. And you're like, if you only knew, do you know what I mean? It's like, it just frustrates you at times that we all do these jobs. Like everybody at Redcar is a volunteer. Apart from obviously the riders who get their pay and Johnny the Trackman, the rest of them were all volunteers, and we do as best a job as we possibly can, with what goes on. And then, as you say, without them knowing what's happening, they're straight on having a go or having a bit of this and that, and it's just, at the end of the day, we've just got to get thicker skin, haven't we?
Like a rhino. Go easy, folks. Everybody is trying really, really hard to, make Speedway a better place in many different levels, and stick with it. It's heading in the right direction, as hopefully you can already start to see. So let's talk about Redcar Bears then, Gavin. You, as I mentioned, have been picked out as one of the fancied teams this year because of the strength of that lineup that you've got, and it is very good. But who are you wary of as the Redcar manager in terms of the other teams that are in the Cab Direct Championship? Who do you think's going to pose you the biggest threat?
I would personally say I'm going to go from sort of one end of the country to the other. The two that I fear the most. I fear every opposition. We've got Birmingham on Saturday, because the mighty Middlesbrough Football Club are playing on the Friday, so we've had to change to a Saturday. And Birmingham, I think they're to be tipped to finish one of the bottom sides. But I look at that side and I still think they've got real riders who could cause us problems. Their two reserves are both 4-point reserves. Now, that to me doesn't say they've got to have eight rides. So 4-point reserves is really a luxury in this league at the moment. I know that means sort of the middle order might not be as strong, but the likes of Stefan Nielsen rides our place really well. And I just look at their side and you think, I don't think there's an easy match. But if I had to mention two, I would probably say I most probably fear Glasgow and Poole. Probably one end of the country to the other end. Poole, I just think the Cooks have got a lot more to offer. That they've just been simmering lovely. They came last year and they simmered, and I just think they're ready to explode, as it was. Obviously with Richard Lawson and Steve Worrell, you know what you're going to get. And I just think at reserve, Kyle Newman, we had him last year. Absolutely loved having him. If Redcar wasn't 6 hours away from home and Poole 10 minutes, I genuinely believe we would have had him back. He loved his time at Redcar, but just obviously a family man as he is, works full time. Where would you rather? How far would you rather travel to a home match? 10 minutes or 6 hours, So yeah, I think it speaks for itself. But Kyle, he came and he was so thankful because he'd sort of lost his love a bit. He'd had a bad injury at Oxford, and he'd sort of fallen out of love with the sport. But we brought him back at Redcar, and he started to love his speedway again. And I think he seems to have sort of started the season and hit the ground running. So I think Poole definitely, and as I say, up the other end, Glasgow can never be, with Klaus Wissen on a 5-point average. Lee Complin at reserve will give 110%. Never knows when he's beaten. Bomber Harris back there. I think, yeah. If I have to say, I would say Glasgow and Poole are the two that I would fear the most.
Yeah, I think most people would go along with that. Poole, of course, have to be considered contenders because they're back-to-back league and cup champions. Glasgow, of course, have built a very strong side and a few changes this year, and we'll see where we are, of course, at the business end of the season. But now it's BSN Series action in the Cab Direct Championship for yourselves, and you host the Birmingham Brummies in what will be their first BSN Series encounter, their first real competitive encounter after the pre-season stuff, I suppose you'd say, for Birmingham, and a chance to hopefully now get on a run of a few fixtures, because the weather has certainly caused a few problems for Redcar. A couple of meetings have fallen victim to the weather, both home and away, haven't they, in the early part of the season?
I think what the main thing is, and I think probably every track curator in the country is going through the same thing. It would be lovely to have the track prepared for racing rather than the track prepared for the weather. It's like Johnny has done an amazing job with our track, but every time he's preparing it to dry it out to be able to race on, rather than preparing it for how we would like to race on it, if that makes sense. And it would just be nice to sort of, to be able to produce a bit of grip. We love a bit of grip at the Echo Arena. It's what we do. We grade after every 4 races because we've got a lot of dirt on, a lot of material on. But the last, the Newcastle at home match, and then the Berwick at home match, as I say, that it wasn't prepared how we would want it prepared for our guys. It was prepared basically how it had to be prepared because of the weather. And I think probably every track man in the country is doing exactly the same at the moment. So it would just be nice to get it. But as I say, we were lucky against Berwick. It was called off on the Friday, then it was called off the Saturday up at Sheffield. But we managed to quickly rearrange with the thanks of Gary Berwick and the Courtneys, etc., to be able to run on the Sunday. So at least we've had 2 home matches. So Birmingham, I think, are having their first match tomorrow, actually against Danny King's part of the Coventry side. So we should really be firing a little bit more in theory, but it never ever works that way. In theory, than Birmingham, we should be a little bit more match fit than them. But as I say, Speedway it's a funny old game. It doesn't always work that way.
Well, certainly Redcar have had more fixtures than Birmingham anyway, because they will have had that, weather permitting, that select meeting against that Coventry side. But certainly their match up at Redcar on Saturday will be their first meaningful encounter, and certainly their first in the BSN series. Tell us about the importance of away form, though, because that's the thing that's really going to separate them out, isn't it, when it comes to it?
It is, and you know what it is? I came away from Scunthorpe. It was a bit damage limitations from early on. Obviously, we'd lost Eric. We had a half-fit Charles. We had a guest in, which is, and I thought Sedge actually, did everything he could be asked of him. But we were up against it from the beginning, and no excuses. Scunthorpe are excellent around their own circuit. That team is built, to win at home and see what they can get away. Ryan Douglas is fantastic wherever he rides, And I think at the end we were 10 points down after heat 6, and we finished 10 points down. So we came away from there. Although we're disappointed, I don't think that many teams will lose by sort of less than we did at Scunthorpe. So, at the end of the day, basically, I couldn't fault any of the riders for their effort. They absolutely bust a gut. And that I said to them at the end of the day, like Daniel ended up, I think, with 2 points. But you know what it is, in all 4 of his races, he was sort of there or thereabouts. He was in the mix. He just couldn't get on the inside line. And when I said to him, Daniel, you'll score 8 points some night, and it'll be, you won't have rode as well as you did today. And they've got to take that on board, that sometimes the points don't justify the sort of work rate that they put in. And Scunthorpe was just one of those, but not taking away from Rob and, what they've done at Scunthorpe is they've built a really good side, and especially one that is fantastic at the Eddie Wright Raceway,
It is a fascinating year, and you look down the league, and obviously people have their own opinions, but the lineups are strong across the board. Every side has got at least 1 or 2 strong heat leaders in there, experienced, well-known names who have performed right at the top levels of British Speedway. And another side to pick out would be, say, Plymouth, who've added Kyle Howarth and Richie Worrell to a side that was already strong with Ben Barker and Paul Stark and Dan Julks. I think they're going to have another good season and be there or thereabouts.
Oh, massively. I think, you look at their top 3. You look at Barker, Howarth, and Worrell on the day. All 3 of them are, they can go through a Cardiff on unbeaten. And as you say, you've got Stark there as well. They've got to have one of the strongest sort of top 3s in the league, without doubt. It's just whether the sort of Ben Trigger can make that step up from the conference or the National Development League. Beg your pardon, show me age. I can see, I know there's been a little bit of sort of, to and fro about should they've allowed the young Australians into it and stuff, but you've got to look at, basically, it's like a stepping stone. And the problem was the step from the Development League to the Championship was huge. And then the step from the Championship to the Premier League wasn't very big at all. And what we need to do is we need to even those steps out. So it's a natural progression. And I think by strengthening the Development League, even though it might mean that the odd, I guess if I was one of them English riders who was out of a job, I would be complaining as well. But it'll hopefully bring the sport on, and it'll bring your Luke Harrisons, and your McGurks and people like that. If they're racing against better opposition, when they do make the jump into the Championship, they're hopefully a little bit more prepared. We sort of seen it with Harry McGurk last year, didn't we? In the Development League, he was very good, but he made the step into the Championship with Plymouth, and he was he'll admit he was out of his depth, you know, and that step was too big to make. And hopefully by, as you say, strengthening up the development league, it'll mean when riders do make that step, it's not as big of a one, and hopefully they don't sink. They can manage to swim when they get there.
And that's what we all want to see, isn't it? Those lads progressing through the ranks and making it all the way to the very top. The likes of Robert Lambert, Dan Bewley have shown that you can do that, and we want more of that, and that is certainly the plan. Gavin, it's been great speaking with you. Thanks for joining us to share some of your thoughts, and also to look ahead to that fixture. Good luck for Saturday. You can watch live on BSN, but of course you can be there in person as well. I always say Redcar delivers some fantastic racing. If you've not been, if you happen to be in the area for whatever reason, get yourself down to the Echo Arena in Middlesbrough, near to not far from the football ground actually. So if you're taking some football in, well, why not stay over and take in the football and watch some top speedway racing as well between the Redcar Bears and the Birmingham Brummies in the BSN series on Saturday, and tapes up at 7:30.
Fantastic, Ian. Thanks very much for having us on. It's been a pleasure. As I say, I'll see you on Saturday. Hopefully, the weather forecast. We're not allowed to mention weather forecast. It's a big no-no with Jade. But anyway, the weather forecast looks with a nice bit of sunshine in the sky for all day on Saturday. So yeah, if you had a loose end, and if you fancy a bit of speedway, get yourselves along to the Echo Arena, and I'll guarantee you'll see some, as you will say, you'll see some class racing, whatever the result.
Absolutely right, and looking forward to it on Saturday. Redcar versus Birmingham, and of course plenty of fixtures at the Echo Arena to take him through the course of the year ahead. Thanks very much, Gavin Parr.
Brilliant, Ian. Thanks a million, pal.
Well, coming up in the next part of No Breaks, No Fear, we have Gavin Parr's opposite number, Laurence Rogers, the team manager at the Birmingham Brummies, to look ahead to that fixture this coming weekend and talk about life for the Brummies heading into 2023 season. And we'll also hear from Chris Harris, who was involved in that Glasgow v Edinburgh derby at the weekend.
No Breaks, No Fear. The official British Speedway podcast.
In this final part, then, we're just going to talk about a few matters in the Cab Direct Championship, because there's a few fixtures coming up over the next few days. We've been talking to Gavin Parr, the team manager at the Redcar Bears. Let's hear from his opposite number now and just spend a little time focusing on the Birmingham Brummies. Laurence Rogers is the team boss of the Brummies, and he's been speaking with Ryan Guest.
Laurence Rogers, Birmingham's 2023 campaign gets underway this Wednesday. A home fixture at Perry Bar against a Coventry B select side, and a nice way to get bedded into the campaign.
Oh, very much so. It gives the boys a bit of paid practice, if you like, with a good bit of competition. Keeps the Coventry name going, which is good, because naturally they want Speedway back at Brandon. So we're looking forward to a great night.
Yeah, press day at Perry Bar last week as well. 6 of the team members got together. We'll come on to why there was no 7th shortly, but the 6 who did get together, a good camaraderie and a good early spirit shown.
Amazing, they all got on so well together. We went for a meal together, they all sat there. We had the Meet the Riders and they were all there, but there's a good spirit already.
The Meet the Riders night as well, speaking to some of the boys, certainly plenty of determination and a great attitude shown early doors.
Yeah, great attitude. We've been written off by a lot of the so-called experts, which is great. Underestimate us, please. We've got a side that, Nick's going to be up there in the 10-point thing, but we've got riders who can improve their averages.
Yeah, I think Nick Morris also said on stage as well about he's only used to being in teams involved in silverware hunts in the championship, in the second tier in particular as well. And as you said, being written off by a lot of people, not given a chance at the playoffs as well, it seems. But that's something you want to try and use to your advantage.
Oh, very much. As I said, underestimate at your peril, because we've got a team that can make the playoffs this year.
We mentioned no 7th member at the press day. That was because an incident with James Wright on his first meeting of the season the night before at Plymouth. Just talk us through what happened.
Yes, he had a great first part of the Paul Stark testimony. He got 11 points out of 12, only beaten by Richie Worrell. He went in the top scorers race, unfortunately hit the fence on the back straight and injured his shoulder.
I know we went for x-rays as well. It was confirmed that nothing was broken as such. What's the latest with James?
He is going to go see the shoulder specialist on the 17th. 18th now. That'll determine, if he has to have any more work on it, or whether or not they're going to give him a time scale then to be back on track.
A bit of more than a bit of a blow as well, because I know you'd introduced him into the team. On the average, he comes in as a third heat leader as such, behind Nick Morris and Justin Sedgman, and certainly someone hard to replace, even in the short term.
Oh, very much so. On a 5.5 on average, Wrighty's worth a lot more than that. He's our ace in the hole, because he would have been a genuine third heat leader.
So short term?
Short term, we're using rider replacement first of all against Coventry, and then we bring in Zach Cook as a guest at Redcar on Saturday.
And just a quick look ahead to Redcar as well. Obviously, they've built a very strong side and put in a dominant performance against Berwick first time out.
They are. They've got three good hit leaders in there, but anyone's there to be beaten.
Laurence Rogers, the team manager of the Birmingham Brummies, with a bit of advanced team news there that James Wright out and Zach Cook will be in for that clash on Saturday at Redcar because of the ongoing injury with James Wright. Now, someone else who comes into the Birmingham Brummies team for the first time in a long time is Ty Proctor, who's coming back into Speedway, was with the Berwick Bandits for a period last year until, of course, he was injured. And actually, at one point, he rode for the Redcar Bears early on in his career. I think right at the very start of his career, a couple of seasons with the Redcar Bears in 2008 and 2009, and that's the place he's going to be beginning life with the Birmingham Brummies in 2023. He was speaking to Ryan Guest at the press day for the Birmingham Brummies earlier this week.
It wasn't in my plans at the beginning, and fortunately the Bates family that own Sheffield and Leicester, I work for them also, and they've them and Laurence had a chat, and I said to Laurence I knew he was struggling to find a rider, and that it could all work out, to be fair, so here I am.
Not the first time Birmingham have tried to sign you either?
No, not over the years, no. It's been 3 or 4 times, I think, but last year we were very close, and just with work, I felt going to Berwick would have been a better option, but hindsight's a wonderful thing, and here I am.
Yeah, and as you've said, you've obviously put a lot of emphasis on your full-time career and job as well. That's what pays the bills at the end of the day. And now that's stable, now you've got the backing of your bosses in the Bates as well. Hopefully this year you can come and race Speedway again for the enjoyment factor, because I know, speaking to you a lot over the past few years, that's something that you kind of dwindled away from it bit by bit.
Yeah, for a lot of people don't probably understand it, but to get a visa to live here permanently and like set my life up for after Speedway. Obviously, I rode here for a long time, and didn't really have a lot at the end of it. And come COVID, I realised that I need a life after Speedway. So, just like everyone in this room, I go to work 5 days a week, and I just want to come and ride my bike to enjoy it more than anything. Last year at Berwick, I was enjoying it, and I got injured, and then due to the visa, I had to earn a certain amount of money. So sitting on the couch, injured, didn't pay the bills, and it meant I wasn't going to get a visa. So I sat out the rest of the year, and now with all that in place, I can really focus on like the end of my career, basically, and want to do it for fun and get back to kind of a level where I was at. And I don't think it will take too long, and I've got a lot of good things in place moving forward. So it's just going to be a balancing act to begin with, but I think it's possible.
We'll talk about the on-track things and side of things in a short while. We've just mentioned there a lot of good things in place as well. And I know when you first approached Birmingham, when they were struggling to get that 7th rider, you were honest with them. You said you might need a little time to make sure it was definitely what you wanted. And for about 4 or 5 weeks, a period of changing your lifestyle to get back into it and making sure it was what you wanted to do and that you could do it.
Yeah, like for sure, if it was a weekend club, I could accommodate it, but I had to make sure that everything was in place, and we've kind of done that, and I've got mechanics that are going to build my bikes in the Bickleys, and they're going to travel down, and funny how things work out. Like, I'm based in Sheffield, but now from here on out I'll be working away in Preston, so it kind of works in kind of good. It's not as far as from Sheffield to come on a Wednesday night, and I just think after a pretty long, decent career, at the end of it, there wasn't a lot of money in the bank, and I can't just do this forever and then finish my career and not have anything. So I've put things in place, and potentially moving forward, could get a supervisor's role and focus more on Speedway and still have that job as well.
Yeah, looking at the racing for 2023, I know it was obviously something that the management and promotion putting things into place took a big note of. Your 4-point starting average, and I know when we spoke, when it was announced that you were going to be coming back, you said even looking at your performances for Berwick before you did get injured, you were surprised it was that lower figure.
Yeah, I was getting paid 9 with Bomber like nearly every home meet, and then at the end of the season all of a sudden I've got a 4-point average, and I genuinely couldn't believe it. So it's just a number at the end of the day. I don't want to be at reserve. I want to be in the main body. It's the first time pretty much my whole career I've been at reserve, so it's quite strange, to be fair, and it's just a number, and at the end of the day I get to pull behind the tapes and drop the clutch, and it is what it is.
There's Ty Proctor, one of the new signings for the Birmingham Brummies, and thanks to the Birmingham Speedway Supporters Club for getting us that audio of the chat with Ty Proctor. And he'll line up for the Brummies on Saturday as the Redcar Bears take on Birmingham Brummies in the BSN series, which is also live on BSN itself, starting at 7 o'clock, tapes up 7:30. Now, Glasgow took both match and aggregate points after overcoming rivals Edinburgh 51-39 in a feisty BSN series encounter at Ashfield. The Monarchs were competitive throughout, only 4 points down after Heat 8, but back-to-back maximums for the home side put them in charge of the contest. Chris Harris top-scored for the Tigers with 12 plus 1 bonus. Klaus Vissing also marking his return to Ashfield with double figures as he collected 10. The visitors well served by their top 2, former Tiger Craig Cook scoring 12 plus 1 and skipper Josh Pickering with 11 plus 1, but they lacked perhaps a bit of strength in the lower order. Let's hear from that top-scoring Tiger then. Chris Harris has been having a chat again with Ryan Guest.
Well, Chris Harris back in Glasgow colours for the first time over the weekend, and always a tasty way to get things started with that derby against the Edinburgh Monarchs.
Yeah, it is. Obviously, we always know it's going to be feisty, but it was good. Good 2 meetings under my belt for them again, and hopefully I can continue that in that form for the whole season.
Yeah, looking at the first meeting at Armadale, obviously it's always a tough track to go to, no matter what's the lineup the Monarchs have got, and it was certainly a nip and tuck throughout, it seemed.
Yeah, we kept pushing and that. So it was to lose by what we did. I think was a very good performance for the team. I've had some hit and miss meetings there, but I'm glad I had a good one this time, and everything worked. And then yesterday Glasgow home was good meeting as well.
I was going to say, I know the Tigers were always confident of turning things around on the home shale as well, and they certainly kept you honest for the first half of the meeting, but Glasgow seemed to grow into the fixture as it went on.
Yeah, it did. There was close, nick and tuck, but I think with the incident with Craig and Ben sort of swung it when we got that 5-1, and we managed to build momentum there and keep it going. But up to that it was a pretty close meeting, and it was good to get the win and the extra aggregate point or whatever it is.
Yeah, you mentioned obviously the incident with Craig and Ben. I know you weren't directly involved, obviously, but nevertheless we've seen a few of these early doors, and it's certainly got people talking.
Yeah, which obviously this thing is, and obviously won at Sheffield as well, didn't we, with our riders. So as long as you don't want to see nobody get hurt and dangerous riding, but a bit of aggro like that off track spices it a bit up for the return legs, and gets it talking, doesn't it? So back in the old days it was always like that after a meet race, so it was it's good to see.
Yeah, and the fixtures coming around thick and fast for Glasgow, and there's a lot of high hopes up in Glasgow this year.
Yeah, they want to win everything, and as always, and they want to everything we go in, we want to make sure we win, so we'll see how it goes though.
Chris Bomber Harris chatting to Ryan Guest there. That pretty much brings us up to date, and we'll finish off by looking at the fixtures ahead at championship level. And in the BSN series on Wednesday, we're due to have the Oxford Cheetahs versus the Plymouth Gladiators. That will be a 7:30 start time at Cowley. And then that challenge that we're just hearing about as well between the Birmingham Brummies and a Coventry select side, which will of course feature Chris Harris in that as part of that Coventry lineup, and some other big names also involved, such as Danny King. Adam Roynan's also riding as well, and that gets underway 8 o'clock the start time at Perry Bar for that one. And then we're into Cab Direct Championship action on Friday. The Scunthorpe Scorpions hosting the Oxford Cheetahs in the league. 7:30 tapes up at the Eddie Wright Raceway. And we've got BSN Series action across the weekend as well. Friday, it's Glasgow Tigers versus the Berwick Bandits at 7:30 in the Scottish group. And then they've got the return leg of that at Shieldfield on Saturday at 7. So that's the Bandits versus the Tigers. And at 7:30 at Redcar, as we've mentioned already a few times, Redcar Bears versus the Birmingham Brummies. And that fixture live on BSN. Then the BSN Series is back next Tuesday as the Plymouth Gladiators are in action in their southern group against the Oxford Cheetahs at the Coliseum. That'll be the first actual BSN Series action for Plymouth at home, because they've not actually held a fixture just yet at home. Rained off this week, and hopefully better weather for next week is the forecast, fingers crossed. And then the other thing to mention, we've got the Oxford versus Swindon Robins challenge match. Great to see the Swindon Robins back. That's next Wednesday, 19th of April, Oxford versus Swindon. The rerun of that one, 7:30 at Cowley. We'll be back with you next week, of course, for the next episode of No Breaks, No Fear. It'll be out on Wednesday. Looking ahead to that Wednesday, there's going to be fixtures in the BSN Series. Birmingham versus Scunthorpe and the Poole Pirates versus the Plymouth Gladiators next Wednesday. But we'll have all reaction of the various fixtures between now and then. And we'll bring that to you available next Wednesday, all being well. Have a good week. Fingers crossed that the weather is about to get better. And amen to that. Thanks for listening. Thanks to everybody who's contributed to the podcast this week, not least Ryan Guest, Mike Boswell, Dave Rowe, and everyone else who's been able to help us out with bringing this to you. We'll be back next week, and have a great week in Speedway wherever you're headed. Take care. See you next time.
No Breaks, No Fear. The official British Speedway podcast.
Sports Social Podcast Network.